Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Between the Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Pat Dugan. No, I'm Stephen Colton.
And I'm Chris Kirkpatrick.
We have a great show today.
We really do.
We do.
And I think that it's weird that does it feel strange us doing this on a Saturday?
It really does, and I think maybe that's why I don't know. I didn't dress this way on purpose. I bought this hat at where I work at the airport, and it's just local, like Asheville. This is like a very touristy type of thing to buy.
Right.
But I was like, I like it. And it was like an on sale kind of thing because it had been sitting in the bag for like a year or whatever it was. And they put them up for sale and half off. And I have an employee discount, so I got half off of that. So I paid like $6 or $5, whatever it was. And I thought, yeah, I like this style hat. And I got my hair cut recently so that there's not like a lot of longer hair. And so it feels more comfortable to wear a hat like this with less hair. I don't know. And then the shirt I just threw on because I thought, well, it's getting chilly, so let me put on long sleeves. And I just kept this shirt. I was going to button it up, but then it looked like a mechanic at a business meeting, so I didn't want to do that.
That would be bad. I think it's crazy. So it's getting cold where you are, and here we just had weather in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, we actually had a 75-degree day last week, which... Wow. Okay. And then it's like 30 the next day. So that's North Carolina for you, though.
Yeah. My daughter has her birthday party tonight. So as soon as we're finished, I'll be running right over there to go take care of it. But we're having it outdoors, right?
Yeah. So tonight, yeah. Oh, well, that's good though, because if it's good weather, that's perfect. I wouldn't be having a party outdoors here right now. But then again, it's worse than many other places. But we have a special guest tonight because, as some of you may know, if you've seen the show before, then you definitely know we've interviewed a few names before. We really kind of gravitate towards DC and what we still call the Arrowverse. I've heard it called the CW verse. They're trying to do that, but it's always going to be the Arrowverse to me. I don't know. It's hard to say something else.
Arrow really started it.
Yeah, and our first big guest from that whole universe was Mark Guggenheim, who is an amazing guy, and he's super cool, like, to talk to. He's a normal guy, and he came on the show before we did a video, and he's been really great. He's like a big supporter of the podcast, and then we went on to talk to Eric Goins from Stargirl, and tonight, I don't want to skip over Jordan Elsas, the son of Superman himself.
Right.
Just a few weeks ago or a month or so ago. It's been so long, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But tonight we have a big guest too, something I'm excited for. And I know you're excited for it too. I just watched the Stargirl finale not too long ago, a couple of days after it aired. I usually watch the next day on CW. And it was great. I think it was wonderful. And we haven't had a chance to talk about these shows in a while. We took last week off, and then now we're here, and we get a chance to talk to someone that lived it, or not lived it, but somebody that was there.
Yeah.
And he's actually here waiting. So, ladies and gentlemen, from so many other things, we'll talk about that, but from more recently from Stargirl, Dr. Charles McNider, Chuck, Dr. Midnight, actor Alex Collins. Where is it at? Oh, there we go.
There we go. How we doing, gentlemen?
Good.
Doing great. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you guys can hear me, see me okay. Everybody looks cozy. We've got like our winter light setup going already, it looks like.
Yeah.
Love it.
Lauren, we were joking before we went live. Chris was like, you kind of look like Pat Dugan in a way. I'm like,
a little bit.
Because I have this hat on, and it was just, I didn't plan it. But I'm like, I kind of look like a mechanic.
Pat Dugan wouldn't drink Pepsi though, Stephen.
No,
he wouldn't. It makes it better in drinking water now.
That makes it a lot better for sure.
Well, we want to welcome you to the show. We're really excited that you agreed to join us and be a part of our podcast here tonight. And
thanks, Chris.
we're just really huge fans of Stargirl, and just kind of glad to get a chance to chat a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm a huge fan of Stargirl too. It's a great show, right?
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome,
I've really been curious. Sometimes people go into acting positions and they're already familiar or versed either with the comic book or they've watched the seasons that came before. When you were going in for this position here as as Dr. Midnight. Were you already familiar with the character?
I wasn't. No, so a little backstory on me. I was born. I don't sound like it, but I was born and raised in England, and then my family actually moved to the United States right before high school. So I didn't grow up with the decades long comic book history that the United States had. I did grow up with a lot of American TV. And so I had an appreciation for a lot of things, especially American cartoons like Thundercats and He-Man and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Transformers and G.I. Joe. So I did have an appreciation for cartoons, but not so much comics. So it wasn't really until I was made aware of this opportunity that I sort of had to do some research. And honestly, what happens for actors in a lot of shows, J.J. Abrams does this for all of his movies, and then a lot of DC projects and Marvel projects, when you get an audition as an actor, you're not actually getting something from the real project. You're not getting actual scripts, and you don't know what you're necessarily auditioning for. And so I had to kind of reverse engineer and figure out some clues. I knew I was a doctor. I knew I was blind. I knew I had an owl sidekick as part of this audition. And so that gave me enough to plug in the missing pieces and kind of figure out who this person was, which then allowed me to kind of fill in the missing pieces. And that was enough for the audition.
That's cool. That's cool. I was doing a little bit of research on you before you came on. You've done quite a few different things.
Yeah.
Some of the shows and movies that we've been kind of like really into, we're big Cobra Kai fans.
Yes.
And so when I had found out that you had been on Cobra Kai, I thought that was really cool. The fact you did
I was a jerk. How many people get to say they got their butt kicked by Johnny Lawrence? You know?
I know.
Exactly.
I know.
I actually had to go back today and rewatch that that episode because I just started watching Cobra Kai again. I'm on season 1 because December 31st we get season 4 coming in, and I didn't make the connection. The first time I watched Cobra Kai, I'm like, oh, that guy's a jerk. And then I watched Stargirl. I'm like, I did not make the connection at first.
A lot of people don't. I mean, if I don't tell anyone I'm British, nobody will know. I mean, I sound American. For all intents and purposes, I am American. I carry a British passport and an American passport. But yeah, a lot of times people will gloss over some of my British roles and be like, wait, you were in that? Who were you? And then they go back and kind of what you did, Steven. They're like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, that was a really fun one. I grew up with the Karate Kid franchise. I loved it. And getting to spend time with Billy Zabka was great. He's lovely. And I think he is just as surprised at the success of that show as everyone else.
Oh, really?
And I think because, when that first came out, it was on YouTube. It wasn't on Netflix. And so they weren't sure whether it was going to find an audience or resonate with people. And it really did, because anybody who's 35 or older grew up with that franchise, and they've probably passed it along to their kids, which is why it's hitting the heartstrings of a new audience, right? That show is not really about Johnny and Daniel-san anymore. It's really about the kids and the adventures that they get into. But it's such a great show. It really is. It's nostalgic. It tips the hat to everything 80s. The fact that Johnny is not tech savvy is super fun as well. Like as a fan, I love that.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah. It is definitely one of those shows where every member of my family, we gather around the TV and watch it whenever the new episodes drop. And so, what was probably your favorite part about doing that character for Cobra Kai?
So there's two things that I really loved about that. My best friend of the last 25 years is a massive Johnny Lawrence fan. He dresses as him every Halloween since high school to now. He's got a 9-year-old daughter, and he still dresses as Johnny Lawrence. And I knew that his 10th anniversary was coming up when I was filming it. And so I asked Billy to do a little anniversary video for him. And I kept that under wraps, and I kept it under wraps. And then I sent it to him and his wife on his 10th anniversary. And that really went a long way. And that was really sweet of Billy to do that for them. And then the director of the episode is also she's been working in TV for a long time. Jennifer, her name is, and she was one of the story editors and directors for several episodes of The Office, which is one of my favorite shows.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And Idris Elba Idris Elba's first episode on The Office was the first episode that she directed. And so she paid me sort of a backhanded compliment and said, "Oh, you're like Idris Elba. You're British but American." And I was like,
Awesome.
"Can I get that in writing, or can somebody record this that you're comparing me to Idris Elba, please?"
Right.
So that was fun. I mean, it was a great, a couple of off-camera takeaways that were really nice.
That's cool.
That's really, really funny that you mentioned him specifically, because I listened to the Office Ladies podcast.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Oh, I love that show. And I was on one of their more recent episodes. They're on the Michael Scott Paper Company, like that during that time. And they're talking about him. They're like, "Oh, it threw us all off when he's like on camera. He's like such a different person, and it's a British accent here." It's kind of funny. Yeah, I love some of my favorite episodes actually of that show.
They were great because it was oil and vinegar, right? He and Michael Scott, they just were not on the, and it was great to see the reaction. Because you're rooting for Michael to come back and win, obviously.
Yeah.
It's great. That's one of my favorite shows of all time. I mean, we could talk about the nuances of what happens after he leaves, and Will Ferrell comes in, and then obviously some of the other folks after that. But I think the first 7 seasons are some of the best seasons of television ever.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't like the show when I first heard about it. I was like, "Oh, that's so going to be so boring. It's an office building. Who could like that?" And then you give it a chance, and you realize it's not really about an office.
No, not at all. It's about the heart of everybody there. Everybody knows a Stanley. Everybody knows an Angela, right? We've all grown up with people or work with people like that, and I think that's what makes it so universally loved.
Absolutely. I mean, and same with Cobra Kai. I mean, like you said, it's not really about Johnny and Daniel. It's about the heart and this generation, and it's one of those shows that kind of is a reboot in a sense, but it's done in such a good way and a right way. It doesn't force the same exact things down your throat just to do it.
Right.
They really find their own
but it doesn't shy away from action either. I mean, if you look at the season 2 finale, that fight that takes place in the high school is intense, and that's a really long scene. I think I'd heard through some people. I think there was 12 weeks of rehearsal for that scene.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a really complex scene, and Stargirl as well. Stargirl's got an amazing stunt team, and the stuff they do is, I think both Cobra Kai and Stargirl are sort of underappreciated on the stunt radar for how complex and amazing some of that stuff is.
I was going to say, I made that connection when I first saw the school cafeteria fight in Stargirl. I'm like, this reminds me so much of Cobra Kai, but I love the way the cinematography of that scene, how they transition in such a good way. Like they go to kick and then boom, they cut to the other person doing the same thing. And it's so fluid and so amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that. I mean, I was a fan. Obviously, I had nothing to do with those scenes for my character, but I was a fan as well. I was just in awe. My mouth dropped and was like, "Whoa, this is so complex. This is so good." And those smash cuts were really great. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I know that part of your character as Dr. Midnight, you're a voice, right? You're a voice. You're Chuck through the goggles. Was there any challenge for you in playing a voice and maybe not directly interacting with the other person?
No, not really. I mean, as actors, that's some of the stuff that we tackle, and we figure out a way to, bring the heart to it, even if you're not necessarily with the other person. I mean, if it's pretty common, if you look at animated feature films, most of the time the actors are not in the room together, but they understand the arc of the character and what's happening in a given scene and what emotion is called for at any given time. And so, yeah, that's just kind of one of the things that we do when we do our research and our homework. So that wasn't really a problem. But what was really funny is if you put the shoe on the other foot, Angelica, who plays Beth Chappell, she has to receive a lot of that information from Chuck, from the AI. Right. And so on set, it's usually a first AD or the script supervisor who's reading those lines offline that she has to act opposite. So it's really a challenge for her. But we played a little prank on Angelica my first day of work. Sweet. Yeah, what happened was they had done a rehearsal with the first AD, and then they did last looks and touched up her makeup and the lighting and everything. And then I was snuck on set. I was hiding around the corner. And then when they rolled camera and she had all this long monologue, then I finally interacted with her, and it was me. And she had no idea. So the reactions from her are really very honest in that surprise and shock and, oh my God, Chuck, And then when the director called cut, I kind of poked my head around the corner, and because we hadn't even met at that point.
Really?
And
Oh,
so,
wow.
so her
Wow.
reaction was really visceral and honest. And then we had a hug and a laugh, and we went from there.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
So,
that was a good one.
yeah, that's amazing. I think that and that made the cut.
I think that
that's pretty
probably
cool.
I think most of that scene made the final cut. Yeah.
So I guess I want to know for you, like, your process of becoming the character Dr. Midnight. Like, what kind of direction had you received, and what did you kind of do to prepare yourself to take on that role?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. It's a great question, Chris. When I first joined the cast, Jeff Johns, the showrunner, creator, had invited me to his office and said, look, how can I help? You're stepping into this role here in season 2. What can I do to get you up to speed? And I said, look, I realize I'm in these scripts right here, but I don't know how we got to here. Can you help me with the other script? And so he yelled out to his assistant, hey, print up all the scripts for Alex. And so I went home with a stack of scripts, and that doesn't always happen. Actors sometimes only get the scenes that they're in. They don't even get the full episode, let alone the entire arc of the character or the season. And so I was really grateful for that. And then also Jeff had me sit, and I've told this story before, Jeff had me sit at his desk, not on the other side of his desk, had me sit at his seat behind his desk with his laptop and said, watch this. And he showed me the opening scene to season 2, where it's all about my daughter, Rebecca. And it hadn't been finished with VFX or sound effects or anything like that. But that first 5 minutes was enough for me to understand where my character is emotionally. What happens when I join the story? That's all I needed. So in terms of emotionally, that helped me. I rely on the script heavily. I rely on everything that's on the page, because good writing, that's all you need to do. You just trust the process. But in terms of building the character, I realize that Dr. McNider, his primary function is as a doctor, is as a helper, right? The Hippocratic Oath is to do no harm. It's to help. And so where so many characters are, for the JSA and the ISA, they react first with their fists or their weapons or whatever it is. Wildcat, right? He reacts first, and then he thinks about his actions later. Everything that Dr. McNider or Dr. Midnight does is the other way. It's thinking first, thinking second, thinking third, and then only reacting when necessary. And so everything factors through the Hippocratic Oath. Everything factors into how measured and methodical I can be. And so if you notice my pattern of speech, it's a little bit slower than some of the other characters. It's a little bit more thought out. It's very unlikely to be knee-jerk or reactionary, which is why when Eclipso has such an impact on this season, it actually forces me into slightly more reactionary or less comfortable positions than I otherwise would be. Which is why I think the conflict that presents itself in season 2 is so big, because Eclipso knows exactly how to push the buttons for every single character. Then the last thing on top of that is, through my research and through what I know, even though Blue Valley is present day, we know that some of the original members of the JSA really sort of hit the public eye in the 1940s. And so the pattern of speech was different back then. The cadence of speech, posture was different. We're much more, look at us. We're all casual and comfy in our chairs now. But everybody, even if you were of meager financial means back then, everybody had their church suit or their work suit. Everybody took pride in how they stood. And so from posture to speech to cadence, everything in Charles McNider comes through that measure.
We've talked about on this show a lot, like how old some of these characters are, because like Pat looks like he's 40, but he's been around since like the 40s,
right?
And it's like, I don't know. But then when somebody we've been wanting to get on this show, John Leslie Shipp, oh gosh, he's so great.
He's so great.
Yeah,
we saw him on Stargirl, of course. I think it was episode 9.
It was episode 9.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. And we kind of had a debate, like, oh, he's not the same. We thought it was a different multiversal Jay Garrick. We didn't know if it was the same Jay Garrick we know already. Right. And I guess he did some sort of interview or something that he said, yeah, it's the same guy. And what? So
I mean,
I've
that
been
guy's
wanting
a
to see
legend,
that.
right? He's
Yeah.
been playing the Flash across 31 years,
Yeah,
and I think
Crazy,
in 7 different universes now. I mean,
I think so.
what you think about that when he first put on that outfit in 1990? He could not have imagined he'd still be playing it. And if you told him he would, he'd probably be like, "Nah, you know what? I don't want to." But
Yeah.
he's done such an admirable job, and he's really raised his game. Even he hasn't just like
Yeah.
laid back on his laurels. He's done great work across all of these different shows, and it's a testament to his commitment as an actor, his enjoyment to continue to play the character. And I love that, and it was great for me. I was giddy that first day. Because and it actually does, it's a really cool device that they do in episode 9, the funeral scene. It's the first time you see my character on camera, right, since the first scene of the pilot episode. And so it's like, oh look, there's Dr. McNider, but wait, there's the Flash. Go look at the Flash. Forget Dr. McNider, go look at the Flash. Right. And so because the fans are so, they're enamored of him, and I did the same thing as a fan. I was like, oh, Jay's there, it's a Flash. And it was great. I loved it.
I think what's really great though is that your character did get a really good chance to shine. I
Yes.
think about in that moment, that episode where Courtney is in the Shadowlands where you are, and I think that you really do serve to be that voice of reason, kind of reminding her that if you're going to win this thing, if you're going to beat Eclipso, it's not going to be through evil, it's not going to be through doing bad, it's going to be about being that light.
Right.
I really do feel like you really were the voice of reason, kind of shining through.
Yeah, I agree, Chris, and I think I had to be, because at that point, the season, that's to episode 211, right?
Yeah.
Everything's building to a crescendo. That episode itself was so jam-packed with stuff that could have been the season finale, and they could have saved other stuff until season 3 even. But obviously, you've got to wrap up that particular villain, perhaps, and tie things in a neat little bow. But so much happened in that episode. I felt like that could have been a season finale, and people would have been really happy with that. But at that point, everybody is ready to go kick Eclipso's butt. And you're right. I have to be that voice. Whoa, tap the brakes for a second, Courtney. Think about this. This is what happens if we rush off, or this is what happens if we don't. We take a step back and we evaluate. So, I really sort of take on a paternal or professorial role, a mentor type role, not just to Courtney, but to Beth Chappell as well.
I'm really loving the show. I mean, it's getting better. And you see people online, the haters, like, oh, this show is boring, this or that. But I love it. I don't know what it is. Like, I think maybe part of it's like Stargirl, the character itself is a newer character, I think.
Yeah.
Within the last 15 years.
Right.
And so there's something there. I'm learning the character as it grows, instead of, doing another version of something else that's been done before. It's all still kind of fresh. And so there's a youthfulness to the story itself overall.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think, look, Jeff is a really smart guy. He understands all of these universes really well. And I think he's got 5 or 6 seasons in his head. And so you can't give away everything right away. And I know Beth Chappell, that character takes a lot of grief because she doesn't fight, or she's a liability, or what have you, but she's not. And she proved that as the season went on. She used her smarts. She used her courage. Not everybody needs to, kick and punch off the bat. And that smart, measured approach becomes more valuable as the season goes on. And it will continue to become more valuable, I think, in season 3 and season 4 as she matures and she gets confidence, and maybe she'll kick a little butt too. Who knows? Yeah. But I mean, her weapon is her brain. That's first and foremost. Not everybody uses their fists as a weapon.
I remember that moment in one of the earlier episodes where Beth was really going face to face with Eclipso, and he grabs her, and she basically said, she was the first one to really fight back.
She was.
And I thought that was really revealing. Number one, she needed a moment where she didn't. I think that they had really set her up to appear weak early on, so that when she grew and developed, that we would really see that.
Right.
So I thought that was important. I'm really looking forward to seeing how your character really works to mentor her. just like the arrival of Sylvester is probably going to help Courtney to develop as Stargirl. Your arrival, I'm hoping, is going to help her kind of step into that role more fully.
Well, I mean, we'll see, Chris. As the season wrapped up, obviously, I left Blue Valley because my wife Myra is elsewhere, and we've got a son, right?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert at this point.
Yeah.
Got a 10-year-old son named Stanley, so I got to go take care of him. So that'll be really cool.
That's going to be an interesting side story, really. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a side story, not the main story, but focusing on his actual personal life and not just here, I have the goggles. It's not just the hero aspect. You actually see his life. And I think that's really interesting.
I think, look, I don't, for me as an actor, my deal was for season 2. So as of right now, who knows if I ever get to come back? I mean, there were a lot of great characters in season 1 that we haven't seen in season 2.
Yeah.
And I think the universe has so many, both on the JSA side and the ISA side, or even beyond and outside that. Again, Jeff has a really complex brain, and he's got 5 or 6 seasons of stories to tell. So, Dr. McKnight or Dr. Midnight may not need to come back, and that's okay, because Beth Chappell has stepped into her own now. She is independent and confident enough, and her parents are on board now. Right. So, I may be in a nice little bow over here. I'm ready to come back and play anytime, believe me. But I don't know if that's necessarily needed as each of these teenage characters mature. I mean, even if you look at Mike's arc, he's matured from day 1 to the end of season 2. He used to just be this sort of smart alecky class clown, but he realizes the depths of his actions have consequences now also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really.
It's just fun. I mean, there's so many stories. You could go down so many avenues and tell all these different stories. It's great.
That's what I love about the show. I mean, a lot of people aren't too familiar with some of these characters. They're like Eclipso who? Who is what hour, man? What is that? I was first introduced to some of these characters back in Smallville. When they had their big 2-hour Justice Society episode, and that was a great story. I mean, it's the first time I saw Dr. Fate and all these people. I would really like to see Dr. Fate and Stargirl. I don't know if that'll happen, but I mean, it would really be cool to kind of see some of those bigger characters kind of pop up here and there.
Well, if you look just at what's on now, I mean, obviously Smallville's from a while ago, but Titans, Supergirl has just wrapped up its 6th season run, I think. Yeah. You've got Doom Patrol, you've got Stargirl, and there'll be a new show next year coming out that's a DC Universe show called Naomi.
Yes.
Which Ava DuVernay is behind. And so we could talk for hours about the myriad overlapping universe crossing crossover shows that could be possible, and it would be great. I'd love to go play on Stargirl again. I'd love to go play on all these different universes as well. It's just fun to tell stories, and these are fun characters that teach universal themes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go
ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to. I feel like a big part of you being in, especially the last part of these episodes, is really to help pass the baton to Beth. Yeah, I think she really spent a lot of the last 2 seasons feeling like she had stolen the goggles, that they weren't really hers. And I think that you kind of coming on the scene and basically saying, you are Dr. Midnight, right? Mm-hmm. That she doesn't have to feel like she's an imposter as that character anymore. So I thought that was really important as far as that transfer.
I think it's ironic, or perhaps a little tip of the hat, or perhaps a little tongue in cheek that, as a character that's blind, it's really interesting for me to say to Beth in many different ways, I see you.
Yeah.
Right? Your parents don't see you. She sat at the losers table in the pilot. She's ostracized. I see you. And how many kids in America and around the world feel that way, and they just need one person to be a champion for them, one person to have their back, one person to believe in them, and then what that confidence can do for that person.
Exactly. I've lived that myself. You know, growing up as a kid, it's like you don't know like who you could really talk to or be friends with or associate with because you feel like you're by yourself. So I totally get that, and that's what I love about that character. I mean, I've been that kid in the past.
And I think a lot of fans of the show feel that and empathize and can relate to that, you know. And I think in the last couple of years with COVID being as widespread and as rampant as it is, it's forced a lot of kids. They've lacked that opportunity of social engagement. They're not going to school in person. They're not having sporting events in person or social events, whatever that is, whether they're in the band or theater or what have you. And so friendship has taken on a different dimension now.
Yeah.
It's weird. We won't know the effects of that for years later, what that's done to people. So again, just, you know, if one person believes in you, that might be enough to keep somebody going.
Well, I think that in the same way, I mean, you brought up the losers table, the fact that really the core group of this new JSA, they're all from that table, right?
Absolutely.
And they end up becoming the saviors of Blue Valley. I mean, that's pretty ironic.
And we the show hasn't really talked about it in depth yet, but why are bullies? Because they're insecure or scared or nervous about something. It's their way of fitting in. And if you look at Cindy Berman's first interaction with Courtney, she tries to make friends with her and then immediately flips and starts picking on her. But maybe that's based on her own insecurity or vulnerability as well, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really interested.
We're all just trying to figure out our way in the world when we're teenagers.
We are, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you eventually find out who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I noticed on I mean, not one thing. There's many things I noticed on Stargirl, but the little kid, and we talked. Chris and I talked about that so many times.
He's amazing.
Milo.
Oh my gosh,
so great. So honestly, throughout the season, obviously Jeff showed me that opening scene and I was like, wow, this kid's creepy. And then throughout the season, he would show some dailies on set, and I saw dailies from one of the earlier episodes. I think it was the scene where he's really going after Beth. And I think that was in episode 8, maybe 7. And I was like, wow, with the lighting and the effects, he is bone-chillingly scary. And then I got to work with the kid in person. He is bone-chillingly scary in person.
Yeah.
He's the nicest kid in the world, but when it's go time, it's go time. And he has an economy of movement in his face and the way he walks. It's sort of like a cross between an Annabelle doll and Chucky.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, it is chilling in person. I'm not going to lie to you. I was scared, and I'm not the only person who said that. Between takes, I'd look over at our script supervisor, Michelle. I was like, Michelle, is it just me, or is this kid really good? She's like, oh no, he's terrifying. He is terrifying. Yeah, honestly, Milo is such a nice guy, such a nice kid.
I mean, I honestly was more creeped out by him than Eclipso himself.
A lot of people say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to take anything away from Nick Tarabay.
No,
he's fantastic as well. He summons that demonic sort of thing, really, that even in the voice, right? He summons it up really well, but because we don't expect it from a kid,
right?
He again, much like my character, he has this other timeliness. He looks like Dennis the Menace did on the TV show way back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Or he could have just fit into Leave It to Beaver or something like that. And that's what makes it so chilling.
Right. There was a real appearance of innocence, I think, in him.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was part of the weapon that he liked using, that boy's appearance sort of like a shield. Who would hurt a poor little defenseless child? Right. And
absolutely.
But I think that Beth being able to strip away that illusion and be able to see him for who he really was, I thought that was a really important thing for us to be able to do.
Yeah, Beth didn't fall victim to the ruse. Everybody else, that was sort of the Trojan horse. He was able to come in, fly under the radar, but Beth was like, "Wait a second, nope, not gonna do that. Not gonna fall victim to this."
Yeah, you know, one of the things I think that I had not realized was that Dr. Midnight was blind.
Yeah,
and I don't know why I didn't realize that, or realize also that the goggles were really a way for him to help restore his sight.
Yeah.
I think that in your episode when you put the goggles on, I realized that they were really almost like prosthetic eyes.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Yeah, so the only through the course of, this season where you see my character, the only hint at it is when I'm in the basement with Pat and I'm changing back into the suit, out of the super suit and into a suit that Pat has given me, and I reach for the goggles and I put them on. It's the beginning of 212.
Right.
And you see in the mirror, you see my eyes and you see this sort of white, milky, mysterious. And so that's the only hint at it. Otherwise, you may just think that I'm just a strange scientist. But yeah, it goes a lot deeper than that, obviously.
Did you play the character differently because he was blind, or was that something that you left rather subtle?
I left it rather subtle, Chris. That's a good question. Because if anybody who has any form of impairment, their other senses improve, right? And so as somebody who is already the character is rather cerebral and measured and thinks things out, that allows me to take a bit more time and not have to rely on other things quite as much. I'm insightful, I'm perceptive, I can pick up on social clues, and obviously the AI enhanced goggles or glasses just help me along with that.
It's cool.
They're super fun. I will tell you that not the goggles, but the glasses themselves are custom glasses, and they're really dark. So
really?
On set, the moment someone calls cut, I have to hand them back to our prop master Fritz, or I will walk into furniture.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Which helps. I mean, it helps the character, but as in between takes, it's not very good. I'll knock lights over and start fires and things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I know that you've done a lot of different things. I was going through and looking at the list of people that you've had the opportunity to work with in your career. I'll just name a couple of them: Clint Eastwood, Rob Reiner, Ron Howard, David Harbour, Tom Cruise, Woody Harrelson. I'm sure there are other people that you've had a chance to work with. Who have been some standouts in that?
I haven't had the good fortune to work with Ron Howard yet. Hopefully that will happen. I mean, Clint Eastwood is a legend, right? He's been working for 7 decades.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's when I worked with him on Richard Jewell, he was 89, and we shot 2 weeks overnights. So we got to work at 7 p.m. and shot all night. And he had more energy than anyone else on set. We had between 700 and 900 extras every single night. And the thing about Clint Eastwood is nobody calls him Clint. Nobody calls him Mr. Eastwood. You call him boss. Excuse me, boss. What would you like? Boss, do you need anything else? And there's no yelling. No one yells action. He just looks over at his first AD, and then he gives him kind of a nonverbal signal. They've worked together for decades. And then the first AD will sort of look at the main actor in that particular scene and just say, whenever you're ready. It's very calm. It's very hushed. Actors are given the opportunity to do what they need to do. And there's, movie making can take months and months and months.
Yeah.
But this is a very efficient set. A Clint Eastwood set is an efficient set. We came in ahead of schedule. We came in under budget. From the day that the film wrapped to the day that it was in theaters was 4 months to the day.
Wow, that's
usually
crazy.
You've got post production for 8, 9, 12 months.
Yeah,
we wrapped on August 12th, and the movie was in the theaters on December 12th.
Wow,
it's crazy. So that was a great experience. Working with Tom Cruise was lovely. I worked with him in an ensemble scene. So what I really noticed is here is somebody who is executive producing the movie. He's the lead of the movie. He's in almost every scene. He'd already been working for maybe 12 or 14 hours when I showed up that day for our scene. And what happens is there's something called coverage, right? So you do the master shot, which is at the scene that everybody's in, and then you go in for coverage. That's close up on all of the people. And you usually shoot the most important person or the A-lister first, and then you turn the camera around and shoot all the supporting characters. And sometimes what happens is that A-lister will disappear and go to their trailer and get ready for the next scene. when the coverage is there. So then maybe a production assistant or a script person will read their dialogue. No, for every single setup that we worked on, Tom Cruise stayed and did all his dialogue. And then when we wrapped for the night, 20 hours into his day, he shook everyone's hand. He thanked them by name. He said, thank you so much for being part of this project. Thank you for coming out. And I respect that. That was really cool. He didn't have to do that. And I wouldn't have begrudged him. He's in every scene of this movie practically, and he's tired. The guy's tired. He's got other things to think about. I wouldn't have been mad at all. But I really respect that he stayed and stuck it out with everybody.
That's cool. That's cool.
Super cool.
That is. Yeah, that's not something I really realized about him. I mean, I don't really have, I don't know the guy, so I can't say, I have an opinion about him personally, but the stories you hear, Tom Cruise is a jerk, but that right there kind of really shows who somebody really is, because eyes aren't really on him in that situation. People don't see that. So to hear that kind of really gives me a little bit more respect for the guy too. Yeah,
it was super cool. I felt good about that. Going back to Richard Jewell for a second, it was great because I spent 2 weeks, next to Paul Walter Hauser, who played Richard Jewell. And this is an actor who's been grinding it out for a long time. He's a character actor. He's not a lead actor by the definition of a lead. He's not a Tom Cruise, right? But here's a guy who knows his lane and does it really well. And he's done great work. Cobra Kai. He was on Cobra Kai for a season and a half. And then he was on a great show. I don't know if you guys watch Warrior, the MMA show, but he plays a little bit of a mentally unstable character in that show, and he's heartbreakingly good. He literally will break your heart, the tragedy that his character goes through. He's not an MMA fighter, but he meets one of the MMA fighters in a halfway house. He's a recovering addict. And it was really funny because I was filming Richard Jewell at the same time I was filming Lovecraft Country, the show for HBO. And so all of my scenes in Richard Jewell are with Paul Walter Hauser, and all of my scenes in Lovecraft Country, for the most part, are with a guy named Mac Brandt. And Mac was in all 3 seasons of Warrior, and Paul Walter Hauser is in all 3 seasons of Warrior. So it was this nice little, 2 degrees of separation.
Right.
And they both had the nicest thing to say about the other, which was great.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Super underrated show. You should watch it, Warrior.
I need to watch that. That sounds awesome, actually. I mean, a show about MMA fighting in general. I'm not a super huge fan of MMA, but I appreciate it and I respect it.
And it's it's kind of like Walking Dead started out about zombies, but then it became about relationships and humanity. Warrior's the same way. I mean, MMA is just the window dressing to the show, and it's really about the relationships and the trauma and some of the stuff that they go through. Nick Jonas is amazing in it. He plays one of the fighters, and I mean, your reaction, both of you, was the same as mine. I was like, a Jonas brother? Okay, whatever. But he's heartbreakingly good as well. I mean, the show is depth and layers and really, really good.
That's sort of how we felt about the show Heels on Showtime or Stars.
Stars. Yeah,
Heels is such a good show. We were big Stephen Amell fans,
right?
And so when we found out, and I grew up loving professional wrestling, so I was like, "This seems great." The Green Arrow is a wrestler, yes, such a good show,
and it's been picked up for season 2. So that's
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we brought out and talked about before you left was you're really good at dialects. That's something that you're good at, right?
I wouldn't say, Chris, that I'm good at it, but as I teased at the top, I was born and raised in England, right? So 50 to 60% of the work I do as an actor just happens to be British characters. It's a feather in my cap that I have that some other actors might not. So I mean, it's not like you're going to catch me in a Boston accent anytime soon. But if I need to go back to an English accent or play an English character, that's a bit easier for me.
Yeah, I was surprised at the variety though. You can do Irish, Scottish, Russian.
Done that before. Yeah.
South African.
Has it, mate? South African is sort of like, if you imagine a cross between British, Dutch, and German, that's how you get South African, because those are the 3 primary countries that sort of colonized South Africa many, many years ago. Eh?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
it's fun.
Is that something?
Now I'm going to have all my South African friends. They're going to be calling me now, and they're going to give me notes.
Right. I love accents, but I'm not very good at them. I think that you just play around with them a little bit,
Yeah.
Is that something that you've always done, or is that something that you've practiced and cultivated, or?
It's a little bit of both, Chris. When I was growing up in England, I sort of did impressions of people that I would see on TV, or like as a little kid, I used to do like a Marlon Brando and Godfather. And I think like everybody for the last 20 years has done a Christopher Walken impression,
Of course,
right? And
of
I
course.
can't do that.
gosh.
Right.
But I grew up when Marlon Brando was big, so I would do, on the day of my daughter's wedding, you come to me and you ask me for this favor. So I would sort of do that. And there were some British comedians and actors that I would do impressions of as well. And then when I moved to the United States, I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. I had a great big mop of curly hair, and I had a funny accent, and I had English teeth, and I wore dark jeans when the acid wash jeans were cool. So I just stuck out for all the wrong reasons. And so
Right.
it was like self-preservation. I kind of needed to fit in. And so quite quickly, I formed this sort of American accent that sort of stuck with me along the way. But if my brother and his family are still in England, so if I'm on the phone with them, just sort of an English accent comes back out. It's just sort of, it's weird. I'm a weird hybrid, and sometimes I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not doing it to make fun of anyone. It just kind of happens. I adopt whomever I'm speaking with.
So I'm from California, and I remember one summer I went to summer camp in Texas, and I was the only Californian in a bunch of Texans. But before I knew it, I was talking with an accent.
Yeah,
But I didn't want to stick out, so I can totally relate.
I do the same. I grew up in the South here in North Carolina, and so when I'm around my mom or talking to my mom, I'm like, that ain't how I did it. That ain't how, But then when I'm talking to anybody else, I it kind of shifts over to the other side.
Yeah, and then you add an alcoholic beverage into the mix, and things really sort of twang out a little bit deeper. Right. And I got a lot of English friends, a lot of Australian friends, and so it will come out in droves when you've had a couple of drinks. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, my wife.
Sometimes people, if they meet me at a bar or at a social event, they think I'm crazy. They're like, "What's your real voice?" So this American voice is my daily speaking voice. This is what I've been using for the last 20 years. But this English voice is also my real voice. That's what I grew up with. That's what my family speaks like. But I've got to think about that. I dream in American. I speak in American English. But this is also real. It's just not my daily real,
It's all a part of you.
It's all a part of me. Yeah. It's crazy.
So I know that along with I think there's a very real, a lot of your work that you've done is very serious. At least that's kind of the feeling that I get in general. And yet I know that you also, didn't you start a group called the Straight Jacket Society in LA?
Wow. Yeah. You're digging in the archives. Yes.
I do my homework. So
yes, you do.
Yeah.
Back in I think 2005.
Okay.
A group of us were all part of another sketch comedy company, like underground sketch comedy company in Los Angeles, and we kind of spun off and started our own thing. And we did. That company ran for about 12 years, and we did shows Friday nights and Saturday nights in a little black box theater in Hollywood that would only fit about 20 people. But we've got some great people that came through, not just that theater, but they had training in a bunch of different other places. But Lenny Jacobson was one of our great products. You could see him on Narcos Mexico. You can see him For All Mankind right now, the Apple Plus space show. He used to be on a show called Frequency on the CW. He's great. Jillian Bell. A lot of people know Jillian Bell from 22 Jump Street. From a show called Idiot Sitter that she created. Laura Cleary has about 15 million followers on Facebook. She did a show with us before, and she creates her own sketches and characters. She's lovely. She has two New York Times best-selling books. One is called Idiot, one is called Idiots. And so we've had some really great people, and behind the camera as well. We have a wonderful woman named Kelly Levy, who was one of Joel McHale's writers and creators on The Soup for many years.
Yeah.
And then Marion is she's a writer for Better Call Saul, and she's actually the equivalent of a showrunner on a new Marvel show that will be coming out soon. So, over the years, we've had the good fortune to have some really talented and wonderful people, some whose names you know, and many others whose names you don't know just yet.
That's cool. Do you feel like that the comedy side, is that something that you would like to do more of, or is that
Yeah, I mean, I love comedy. I mean, I loved the big comedies of the 90s, Will and Grace and Seinfeld and Friends, the big multicams. And multicams have sort of, as the 2000s came, multicams sort of fell out of favor with the exception of like Big Bang Theory or Two Broke Girls, and single cams dominated. We've talked about The Office. Modern Family is another example. I love Silicon Valley. I would love to do a dry single cam comedy like a Silicon Valley, something like that. That would be great. I think my niche is probably more 1 hour drama, like a Mayor of Easttown, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. But I'd be happy to do a comedy. I'd love that.
Would you see like DC's Legends of Tomorrow? I mean, I've always loved the show. I know we've gotten a little bit more critical of it because it's kind of, not that it's bad. I still love and respect everything they've done on that show, but something like that where it's more comedic and less serious these days. Yeah. You see yourself as maybe, whether it be Dr. Midnight or any other version of any other character on the Legends team. I think that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I would love to be. And it doesn't. Yeah, like you said, it's not a comedy, but there's comic relief, right?
Yeah.
Even within Stargirl, there are moments of lightness. Some of them are heartfelt moments of lightness. You Can Call Me Chuck, where that whole interaction is kind of funny in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, and obviously we talked a little bit about Trey Romano's character, Mike. Mike is the comic relief. Pat Dugan and his relationship with Sylvester. I mean, the scene in the pilot where Starman is dying, and he's just like, "Not you,
not you."
I want to make it clear, Pat, not you, anyone but you. I mean, so there is comedy inherent in the writing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, even in another DC Universe project, I'd love to go in and lighten the mood. Absolutely.
And I love seeing Jim Gaffigan as the voice of
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt. Yeah. I names slip my mind sometimes. That was great. I've always liked him.
Yeah. And he's such his style of comedy is so dry that it fits Thunderbolt perfectly.
Yeah. It was great. And we saw, like, when you saw like gingerbread houses and like 20-foot gumdrops and all this stuff, I'm just like, this is great.
Yeah. That was awesome. Unfortunately, I never got to work with him, obviously, because a lot of his stuff was voice, and so he was in the studio separately. So we never got to connect. But I loved what he did with Thunderbolt.
That's great. Gosh, I don't know. I think I didn't really have too much to ask, Chris. I don't know if you have anything left. We don't want to keep you too long, Alex. I mean, we've got we try to keep it to around an hour because I know a lot of people have things to do. We don't want to keep them too long.
Yeah.
No, we just really want to thank
Saturday night in Hollywood. There's lots of fun things to get in trouble with.
Right. We really do just want to thank you so much for making yourself available. We are just legitimately huge fans. My family gets tired of us of me. That's Alex Collins. Pointing you out.
To that guy.
I know. But it's really cool. We are just so thankful for you again, just coming on and sharing with us. A lot of us don't know what it's like being on your side of the camera, right?
Yeah.
We get that little view on our TV sets about what we see, and it's really cool just to hear about your process and what you bring to the character. And I think that sometimes we get this idea in our heads that actors they're celebrities and they're not really real people. And I think that whenever we meet people like you, we realize, hey, you're just like us. So
we're all just doing the best we can, trying to get through every single day and maybe bring a little brightness and kindness to someone else. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity that Stargirl has presented. It allows me to talk to folks like you, and a lot of the characters I play are more serious, like you touched upon. They are guys with chips on their shoulders. They may not be the most redeeming characters in the world. So playing somebody who does bring a lot of light into the world, like Charles McNider, Dr. Midnight. It's been a real honor to be able to do that, and as I say, speak with fans and speak with different publications, and hopefully we get to do it in person at some point. As the world comes back in person, I can't wait till I can connect with some fans for the show in person.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we want to thank you again so much for your time, and we'll continue to enjoy you in all your other projects that you're doing, and to celebrate your work. And again, thank you for joining us for the show.
Yeah,
thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
thanks, Stephen. I appreciate it so much. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
We will.
You too.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye,
good night.
Yeah.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. What a great interview. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was great.
That guy's awesome. I know we're not going to sit here and ramble for an hour about how lovely he is, because I know you've got some things to get to. I wanted to thank you again for working with me, because I know last week I wasn't having the best of days. So this week it fell into place that we had a Saturday. So I'm glad it all worked out, and then we could do it, because I'm so mad at myself now looking back. Like, I wish I could have talked to that guy last week, but I mean, things happen. People have their moments. I guess.
And I yes, I've got something that's coming up here. I did want to just encourage you, let you know that I've been having a rough week too. This has been a tough time, professionally for me, and so I totally understand when we need to just kind of put the brakes on it and deal with our stuff. And the great part was that Alex was more than willing to kind of move things around and make time for us. And you know what? This is a partnership, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to 100%, and I knew that you needed to just kind of take a deep breath and relax. So
yeah, and I mean, just a couple of days, like really the end of that day, I was kind of good. It took over for a minute, and I was actually going to talk to Alex about some of those things, because when I was messaging him on Twitter, I was like, "Hey, this is why I'm not going to be here, or why we need to reschedule." I was 100% transparent, and he totally understood. He's like, "I've dealt with those issues. Like, let's talk about it on the show." But I love how I didn't want to. I really didn't want to force that topic. If it didn't come up organically, I didn't want to go like, "Okay, pause. Tell me about being sad." Like, it's a good issue to talk about. It kind of makes you feel better. It helps get those things out. But I think it's more just as stressful to force it in there, But hopefully, we didn't invite him back. Oh no, he'll hate us forever now.
Well, we can always follow up and just say thank you for joining us, and we hope you come and join us sometime in the future. I think the point that we really kind of got in this podcast was that he's got his hands on a lot of different things.
Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to bring up that he was in Gifted.
Oh yeah,
not a big part, but I loved that show. So
that was good.
Yeah.
I like him a little bit more now, and I like Tom Cruise a little bit more now. Somehow, like, I never really hated the guy, but I thought Tom Cruise. But now I'm like, Tom Cruise, yeah, okay.
Tom Cruise kind of gets some bad press. I think
he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he just hates couches, because he jumped up on that one couch, and I was at Ellen or something, and like smack. No, that's a dumb joke. That was way back too. I'm like pulling stuff out from like 10 years ago. But yeah, it's been fun. So I guess I'll go ahead and say let you go and get to your stuff. And gosh, next week I guess we could talk. We're getting Cobra Kai's coming up soon. Well, we got about a month and a half, but still, I'm rewatching the entire series again.
Yeah, just
to kind of get geared. And I figured by the time I watch 3 seasons, I'll have like a month left, and I'll probably finish 3 seasons in 2 weeks. But
there really is so much to talk about though for next week.
There is. We've got a lot to cover over the next week, over the past few weeks.
Have you seen Shang-Chi?
I have not seen it, but I did watch on Netflix. I watched Kim's Convenience for the first time, which is a sitcom, and not the main guy, but one of the guys in that show is the main character in that film. And I did not know that. I just thought it was a really cool connection. But I want to watch that for sure at some point. And Spider-Man's coming up really soon. A lot to talk about. Ghostbusters in like less than a week.
Yes. I'm so ready for that. I'm so ready for that.
We're gonna have a lot to talk about over the next few weeks. But have a good night.
All right.
I'm gonna go grab some late dinner and maybe watch some more Cobra Kai.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good night.
You too.
All right.
Thanks.